kind of interesting what you find in the trunk of some of these cars, these former police cars. Evidence bag. I'm glad this one is still sealed. I hope that's used for parking purposes, marking tires instead of marking body outlines. This should be a staple of everyone's trunk. Alright, welcome back, Rudy's Resurrection fans. I'm up early today. We're trying to get a little bit of work done on the truck, but it's kind of rainy, so I'm going to have to kind of do most of the work under the carport. My plan for today is to get the gas tank mount completed. I got some angle iron that I'm going to use to fab up a little frame that I'm going to mount the fuel tank in. So see if we can get that done today. So I've done some more work on the project here. I've got some more of the metal cut out of the dash. Still have a lot to go, but I spent some time the day before yesterday cutting some of the old metal out of the cab and cut the firewall out and a good portion of the bed. And I've just got the cab kind of resting down on the frame right now because more or less I don't have any other place to put it right now. We've had a little bit of rain here in Alabama the last few days, so I've just got it under the carport here trying to keep it fairly dry. So give you a quick shot. I put some extra bracing, as you can see, in the bottom of the cab because again I was just kind of concerned about how this floor was going to, when I cut the floor out, how it was going to weaken the cab. But it's pretty rigid. Doesn't seem to have moved really much at all once I cut this floor out. So I've got, part of the step plate cut out. You can see there's the residual portion of the rocker from the Crown Vic. I need to trim that out some more. But my hope is that this flat part of the original cab floor, I can mate it up fairly closely with the flatter portion of the Vic floor. That's my plan, at least for now. But today I'm working on my gas tank mount, and I kind of changed my mind a little bit on using the a regular sheet metal mount out of the back of the quarter piece from the Crown Vic, and I'm going to do basically the same thing that Carlson's Customs did with his Grand Marquis F100 swap. And I just got some angle, and this is actually 1.5 inch angle, and I measured the distance between the frame kind of right at the level of those shock tower mounts, and that's 43.25 inches. So I cut a lower piece 43.25 inches. My vertical pieces are 20 inches per side, and I just kind of welded that up in the bottom there, as you can see, so my gas tank will kind of sit down in there. And I've got them just clamped in right now. I'm going to go ahead and tack them in, take those clamps out, and sit my tank in there, make sure I'm happy with how everything is sitting, and then I'll get those welded in. Okay, so I've got it tacked in here on both sides. I'm just going to set the tank in here. Let's see how it fits. Alright, I like that pretty well. I'm just leaving these rubber pads on the bottom that those straps went around, and they actually seem to fit down in this channel quite well. Again, that's 1.5 inch angle, and I think that's going to be nice and sturdy. I'm probably going to drill a hole in the top on both sides and just put a single bolt to bolt it into this channel on both sides. Maybe put a little piece of rubber behind that just for vibration purposes. I think that's going to work well. Get it welded up. So the tank is in. Sitting about right where I wanted it. Pretty much kind of where it sits in the body anyway. I did tuck it up just maybe a little bit more tightly because I'm not going to be running exhaust over the axle, so I'm just going to have some either turn down just kind of beyond the cab, or I'm going to kind of route it out in front of the rear wheels, so I don't have to deal with the exhaust. Pretty much got just exhaust cut off back here right now. Then I'll either put some turn downs there or bring it out in front of the rear wheels. I haven't decided yet, but I just drilled a couple holes here to mount it on either side, just kind of through the tank flange and then through the angle. And I kept all these little, I don't know what they call these things, these little speed nuts or something like that. And those came in pretty handy for that. So I put one on either side. And like I said, the dimensions of that is from right where that's welded in here. I've got it painted now, but right where it's welded in on either side of the frame, that's 43¼ inches based on the measurements from my frame. And so the bottom piece of angle, I cut that 43¼ and again that's 1.5 inch angle, and then the vertical pieces are 20 inches. And so I think that turned out pretty well. Pretty happy with that. And I've got some ideas for my bed. I think it's going to work pretty well, so that if I ever need to remove the tank for any reason, it'll be coming up through the bed. Should be pretty easy to remove if I ever need to change the fuel pump or what have you. But I've kind of been throwing around the idea of widening my bed. I have been taking some measurements, and in order to kind of get the tires to kind of fall in the Flareside fenders, I think I'm going to have to widen either the fenders, or I'm thinking about widening the whole bed. We'll see how that goes. But I've got the cab right now just kind of resting on the frame, again because it's kind of raining outside and I don't have anywhere else really to leave it. So kind of this is where we are. Again, I've got a lot of the floor cut out of the bed, and I did take the firewall section of the Vic on off, or went ahead and took it completely off. So it's sitting over here on the frame that the cab was sitting on. So I wanted to take that off because I think it's going to be easier to kind of trim it down, and I also want to paint the firewall black, so it'll be easier to paint that. But as I kind of figure out where I need to make my cuts here to mate up with the firewall, or at least with the cab, I think it's just going to be easier to do here. I can take more precise measurements, I think, with it like this, because I do want to try to get it pretty close, where I'm not having to put a lot of metal in here. And again, I don't know if you can see kind of where I've got the firewall cut here out of the cab, kind of coming up and then going across. I want to try to make sure that that is about as accurate as I can get it, so I can get those welded up. The other thing I wanted to do is kind of get in here and just kind of clean all this out, clean all the floor pans out, kind of scrub that out, get that nice and clean, because I'm going to put some sound deadener all in here and on the back of the firewall, and then down on the floor as well. And I've kind of cut this kind of right before, cut more of the floor out than I had in one of the previous episodes. I cut it right here before it kind of started to drop down, because again, I'm hoping that I can get this to where it's going to mate up fairly well with what I've got cut out of the floor of the cab, because this is kind of where the bench seat mounts, and it's fairly flat, and I think it'll just be easier to put seats in here, and that metal is still in really good shape right back here, so there's really that's no rust through or anything back there, so that's still pretty solid. But that's kind of where things are, and it's pretty crazy low right now. Just kind of getting back and looking at it, but it's not obviously going to be sitting that low once I get my cross member built for the cab mounts, the rear cab mounts. I'm sure it'll bring it up another probably couple inches or so, but a whole lot lower than I thought it was going to be, just by kind of glancing at it right here. But yeah, getting pretty excited. This is kind of to me, the kind of getting to this point where we're getting the cab on and everything. This is kind of one of those points in the build that it's sort of like a hump. If you can kind of get past the hump of getting the cab on and getting it bolted down and all your firewall and everything welded up, depending on how you're doing your build, to me, I think that's kind of a pivotal point of kind of getting through this build. So that's kind of where I am, and hopefully I'll get some more work done on it here pretty soon, and we'll be updating more videos as we go along. Okay, so that's going to do it for this episode 8, the fuel tank mounting episode, and a little bit of cab work, some metal work, kind of getting the cab prepared to mate with the frame. Currently kind of sitting on there, but a long ways to go. But getting pretty excited to kind of see things sort of coming together. I also wanted to recognize all of our veterans. This is Veterans Day weekend, and so I did want to say thank you for your service, for those that have served our country or are currently serving our country. I certainly understand and recognize the sacrifices that you all make and your families make as well. So thank you sincerely for your service. So that's going to wrap it up, and again, thanks for watching. Certainly appreciate any comments, suggestions, advice that you may have, and again, tune in to the next episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.